Just waiting for a moment. I've noticed technical issues with the audio in the first few seconds, so let's just wait. I'm laughing because I knew you would come. I just have a dear friend, Brooke, who is joining this live. She's curious. Curiosity killed the cat, right? Curiosity killed the cat. Life is about curiosity. The most expansive position for you to ever be in, if you're a high achiever, if you're a change maker, a visionary leader, then this particular episode is going to be for you. If you've ever felt like something is out of alignment, that you feel stuck, that you have self-doubt, that you have imposter syndrome, that you have a feeling that you're not connecting to your heart, if you feel like you're too much in your head, then this episode is going to be for you. Yes, I know. So just to be aware, I'll be putting this onto YouTube where it will switch. But Facebook's on the app doesn't have the camera flip anymore. I've spent a week searching for it. It's not there. So yes, it's very annoying. So excuse this being back to front, but if you want to come back and watch this episode on YouTube where it's going to be the right way around, feel free to go and come back to watch the recorded episode. But this is live. And why am I going live? It's a natural thing for me to be live. Part of the reason why I go live is because I've spent years in the film and entertainment industry, and one of the things I used to teach was improvisation. And everything about improvisation is about being present. And it is a pure reflection of how we truly manifest abundance into our lives, is being completely present and feeling what is happening now, not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, not preempting something that's going to take place, because that's what people do in our lives, right? A lot of high achievers cripple themselves with the notion of feeling they need to be in control because they think they are in control. But we don't control anything. It's far from the truth. Actually, the only thing that we can control is our mind and our emotions. So today I'm going to tell a little story. A little bit of a story of my journey in the last 2 years. So if you're happy to stay, hang around. It might be a little bit entertaining. You might actually discover something inside you. You might actually get a shift that will amplify a block in you where you go, oh, that's it. Shit, you just opened me up. Ah! So 2 years ago today, this is really special. 2 years ago today, I had a cyber attack on my Facebook profile. Now, why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because 2 years ago, I had spent 3 years plus my life on Facebook, from film and children and everything else when Facebook first began, 2008, I think I signed up. So there was 8 years of history on there, right? And the last 3 years on there was an audience of 7,000 people in my growth, witnessing my growth, listening to the things that I did. And I was everywhere. I had video content everywhere. I had written content everywhere. The really interesting part of this is that overnight, a week before, a financial company in Australia had a cyber attack. My ID was stolen. A week later, for 4 days, someone was trying to get into my account. And they finally managed to do it. Now, I had the highest of high security settings. I never, in all the time, in all the spotlight, for 3-4 years in the spotlight, I never had an issue, ever. Never had an issue. I knew everyone around me were getting wiped out, cleaned out, held back, putting bans on them, all that kind of stuff. Me, not a thing. Not a thing. Built an audience, 7,000 people in between Facebook and Instagram. Overnight, gone. All of it. My whole history of who I was online and what I'd built and what I'd developed. Right? And what I felt at that point, now I've been in a relationship for 4 years, just over 4 years. 7 years ago, 7 years ago? 7 years ago, I went through a divorce, high conflict at the beginning. You know, another family involved, another man involved, kids at the same school. This was, initially, it was 3 months of telling me that she needed space, she needed to work her stuff out, but she didn't say that on the first day when she unloaded, which was the opening statement after, because I was running a massive team at that point. I was an incredible leader with a big team behind me before I went online. And came home after a busy day, sat down, you know, not many words were said. I was playing with the kids, sat down to dinner, and still silence, facing each other. Kids had actually been sat in the lounge room in front of the TV, which was strange, and I thought that was strange. And then she was scraping the food on the plate with her fork, and that, you know, that on a blackboard sound, right? That blackboard sound through my soul, right? Going, what is going, the tension, what is happening? And then she said, I've had enough. You're too weak for me. I need a stronger man. And I thought at the moment, I didn't say anything. I thought, the first thought that came into my mind was, whoa, that was heavy. And I didn't know how to react. I held myself together for that whole evening and just the words going through my head. Obviously, the next few days were intense and, you know, conversations were had. And at that point, and this was 6 days after my birthday. And it was also 5 days before we went to Fitzroy Island for a few days. Just let that sink in for a second. She said that. We had a trip organized, which is only 45 minutes away, but it's on an island, my favorite place in the world. I've traveled all over the world, but it's my favorite place in the world. And it was for my birthday. And she said that 5 days before we went there. 5 days? 3 days. 3 days before we went there. For 3 days. So you just allow that to sink in for a second, the uncomfortableness, and me being the optimist, because I'm an optimist at heart. That's who I've always been. I see the greatness in everything, in every circumstance, in everyone. It's why I stayed in a relationship for far too long, because I saw the potential. I was optimistic. I thought I could be the pillar. I'll get to that in a minute. But so for 3 days, I was on a verge of, saving. This won't happen. No way. I'll stand up to this. 4 weeks after that, we were having a conversation that turned a bit heated, and I said, in a bit of a rant, I don't want another man looking after my kids. Bringing up my kids, I think was the words I said. And the moment I said that, she was laying in bed with the blankets over her, and she pulled up the blankets towards her mouth, and she stared at me. And for that split second, I caught it. Because I wasn't looking at her when I said it. But at the end of when I said it, I looked at her, and I saw that glint. I saw that glint in the eye. And a wave of knowing went through me. And she said shortly after that, there isn't. But I knew. Right? I want you to, this is really important to understand. Anyone that's been through a divorce, this is important to understand, because this is part of the journey of what I'm going to share. And trust me, I'm a high achiever. I always have been. I always will be. I've always been a leader since a kid. Since I was 18 years old, I was running teams of people that were older than me. But I never really owned it, because I was in the film and entertainment industry, and anything I did outside of it, I never really took any notice. But I've always been a leader. So the moment I felt that energy, I walked out of the house. I jumped in my car and I drove. And I bawled my eyes out. I bawled my eyes out. And when I say bawled, when I say bawled my eyes out, it was like a river. And it was so intense that I couldn't see the road while I was driving in this wave of emotional energy. And what I had to do while I was driving is I had to pull up my eyeball like that while I was driving so I could see the road. While I was sobbing, pouring out of me, spit down one side. And about 20 minutes of this, I get a message from the owner of the establishment, which was a high-class restaurant, which was part of a multi-million-dollar aquarium that I was running in between the two. I get a message going, this person can't come in tomorrow. Can you sort something out? And I pulled over to the side of the road, trying to text. It took me like 3 minutes to see the letters on the phone. I can't deal with this right now. Can you do something? But I'm a giver, right? I'm a giver. Get in touch with this person. She will do it. Threw the phone down, kept driving. After driving for about 45 minutes, as I got onto the other side of town. So I was in a small town called Cairns. I still am. I was only meant to be in this town for 3 years, and I'd actually stepped away from my film production company because my then wife got transferred to this location against my will. So 2 weeks before she was transferred, or was told that she was getting transferred, with no options, right? No options. My business partner, who lived about an hour and 20 minutes away, moved houses to 15 minutes away from me to relaunch the financial aspect of the company after the GFC hit, which wiped out a $2 million production that we were doing at the time. We lost a lot of money, but we had faith in ourselves, and we redeveloped for 3 years after that, and then we went to launch again. So when I found out that she was moving, I had a lead role in a traveling theater play. My first theater play where I was going to be naked. Get that one into you for a second. Just think about that. When I read for the role, and then they say, yeah, so this there's a scene, full nudity and everything, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, all right. And about a week before I found out, we'd just finished the production stills for that production, right? There's me, half naked body, which appeared to be naked, right? On these banners, writing all over my body to depict what the character was actually going through. And a lady's hands gripping my body from behind, right? Just to give us some imagery. So there I was, 6 years later. Because on the third year, I was preparing to go back to my tribe, to my life, because I'd put my hand up and said, look, we're here for you. Go and focus on your career. We had a child while we were here. I'll put my hand up. I'll take the back seat. I will support the family. And I was the main caregiver for my first then son for 3 years. I learnt a lot about my feminine side as a masculine. I learnt a lot about energy, and I learnt a lot about how to communicate with kids on an energetic level. Something that I advise, I implore any man to have the opportunity, because it will be the most confronting experience that you've ever had. And the reason for that is because most men aren't, and I've been in the film and entertainment industry most of my life, right? I understand the dynamic of feminine and masculine. I've been a creative, and I was still confronted to the shithouse for 6 months, for the first 6 months. There was moments I'd be bawling my eyes out, going, I don't know if I can deal with this. I don't understand. I don't understand how to communicate. Right? Because women have that natural ability, most have that natural ability, because their energy is intertwined. You carry that baby for so long. So there I was, ready to go back, and she got offered a position, and I said no. Nah, we're going back. I'm out of this place. I've had enough. And then she gave me all the pluses and the minuses, and I went, how could you do that? That's unfair. That is so unfair. Of course I'm going to go with the positives. Of course. And when I found out she got the position, because secretly I was hoping that she didn't, I had a breakdown at work. Like, breakdown. Uncontrollable for about half an hour. Breakdown. And about a year later, I had another breakdown. And I spoke to my business partner. I said, I can't do this. I have to put the company on the side. I've got no energy left. I'm done. I've got no energy for my family. I've got no energy for my wife at the time. No energy for my kids. I need to let something go. And I let go of that, thinking that I would just focus on my kids, which is great. But what it did was allow me to forget about my dreams, and then I forgot about who I was. Right. So there we are, 3 years later, having a frickin' divorce. Me driving out of town. Tears coming down my eyes. And at this point, when I was winding down the window, still crying, not as intense, but still crying, sobbing, I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Fuck you, Cairns!" And I kept driving for another hour into the middle of nowhere. And I sat there for another 2 or 3 hours before I went back home. And then I stood by my then ex-wife, my then wife, ex-wife now, stood by her words. And I said, "I believe you. If there isn't another man, I believe you." I had faith. 3 months later, the truth came out. A week before Christmas, he went and left his wife and 2 kids. The whole thing came out in the open. 3 weeks after that, it was into the public. And then from a private affair, it went to a very, very public affair. A small town, everyone knew. Pretty confronting. So that then started this journey of where I am now. Where I am now is because I spent 9 months focusing on turning a high conflict situation into something very empowering. To the point that I was seeing a psychologist and a counselor. And my first questions were, how do I fast track grief? And they said, you can't. And I said, bullshit. I don't believe you. I have 2 kids and they need their dad and his head and heart to be together. I need to figure this out. Nah, you just got to wait for it. What? Yeah, time will heal. Bullshit. It's the biggest load of crap. So anybody that has gone through grief, let me explain this. Waiting for the pain to disappear doesn't happen. The pain is always there. Why? Because you've trained your body to remember a memory with an emotional trigger to it. So when you look at that memory in your mind, you get triggered by the emotion. Because what you haven't done is transcended the perception of what you believe that memory to be for you. In the simplest of terms, let me explain. That's what it is. And it doesn't matter about what kind of grief. Divorce, death, child death, whatever it is. What the body does, you train it as a neural pathway. Once you pass 60 days on average, you have just created a neural pathway associated to that experience that has now become a belief system in your subconscious. So when you are triggered by that particular memory in whatever circumstance, whether it's a photo, a smell, a thought, a sound, a tone, a food, whatever it is, a taste, and that memory comes back, boom, so does the emotion. Nine months it took me to come to a place of peace, acceptance, love for the situation that took place. The moment I found out that they were having a relationship, which was only 3.5 months after I found out that I was getting divorced, I spent a week, and boy did I get angry. I was angry. I was really angry. I was so angry. I went vengeful in my thoughts. Demonic stuff. And I was drinking a bottle of wine, sitting in the kids' cubby house, smoking a pack of cigarettes, bawling my eyes out. Angry. Vengeful. And then this thought came into my mind, into my soul. Thought, voice, whatever you want to call it. And it said, "That's not you." And I went, fuck. You're right. That's not me. That's the pain. And then I cried some more. Then I cried some more. So the reason why this is so important is because you'll understand the transition of what I'm going to share. After that night, I actually called her, sent her a message. We need to talk. I want a meeting. It took 3 weeks for her to organize a meeting with me face to face. I also got in contact with him. And I said, we need to have a chat. I said it in a loving way. I said, look, this is the circumstances. This is what's going on. As two men, as two fathers, we need to have a discussion about how this is going to take place. I got in touch with his wife. Oh, I went all out. Trust me. I confronted everything. And there's a reason for that. Because I put faith in the last 3 months, faith that my marriage would get back together. Faith. Even with the rumors that other people were saying, oh, there's got to be another guy. I was like, no, she promised. She said there wasn't. I want you to think about this for a second. So when I found out, I'd spent 3 months working through my grief on a concept and a perception to start all over again on a completely different grieving process. Okay, I want you to think about that for a second. So I spent 3 months working my grief, 3.5 months, to then have it completely demolished, to start again, right? I went all out. I researched the kajibas out of this, trust me, from some of the greatest minds, philosophers, speakers in the world. And I implemented. And then I learned. So, what happened after that? Took 6 months for him to actually have a meeting with me. 6 months. His wife ignored me. And then I bumped into her about 3 months later. About 3 months later, I bumped into her at the shops. And I'd been on a deep journey of thriving and putting myself into social media. I was actually, I'll get to that. So a week later, after all of this took place, 2 weeks later, actually, 2 weeks later, the company I worked for went into receivership, bankruptcy, while I was taking an emotional break for a week on my island that I love with my kids. Came back and the place was locked up. I didn't even know. Didn't even know. So there I was. No job. No wife. An affair in front of my face. A whole public, a whole community with opinions of everything that they believe that I should do. Once I had that meeting with my ex-wife, 3 weeks after that, I said, I only want 3 things. We have to raise 2 kids. What I want is truth and honesty. That's all I'm asking. I said, I don't care what you do. I don't care what it is that has taken place. The second thing is I want you to be happy. Because if you're happy, my kids are going to be happy. And that's the core of the importance of all of this for me. Number 3 is that we need to co-parent. So if the kids want to stay at my house longer, then it happens. If they want to stay at your house longer, then it happens. Their emotional support is of the utmost importance to me. And I won't take no for an answer. She agreed to the 3 terms. And I walked out of that meeting and I jumped in the car. And emotionally and psychologically and energetically, I saw it in my mind. I shut the door on that experience, on that life, on that identity. And it was gone for my rebuild. And I spent the next 6 months focusing on me, my uplifting, my forgiving, I'll tell you the 5 steps. My acknowledgement, my acceptance, my forgiving, my healing, my releasing. Surrender. 6 months it took me. The evidence that I saw was that we were having coffee after school drop-off, and she came out with a statement of, if your parents have moved up here, we'd still be together. And I just went, I heard that, and I was like, that's a weird thing to say. Why would you say something like that? That's weird. And I kind of looked at myself and I went, I'm not being triggered. Wow. That's interesting. For the next couple of days, I would just witness myself. I'm not being triggered. Interesting. Very interesting. This shit works. And it was that decision there that I went, I need to teach people this. I went into coaching. And I found Dean and Tony Robbins. And, they've been part of my life for the last, 6 years. Tony, most of my life. And I went into grieving and people going through separation. And for the next 12 months, I gave my services for free. I helped people break through all over the world. It was incredible, right? And then I have to wrap this up because I've got to go and pick up my kids. I didn't expect to go for so long. Wow, it's 3:00. I am late. I might have to continue this later to get to this part. That's part of my journey. So the very aspect to all of this is, for one, you've just found out a whole plethora of information about how I got to where I am today and what I've realized and who I work with. So I work with high achievers, leaders, visionaries that feel stuck, feel like an imposter. Trust me, I know. On the next video, I'm going to explain, and I'll do it when I get back after the after school drop-off. I'm going to explain what the last 2 years has been for me when social media wiped out my existence and my identity, and what I've discovered in the journey of going very, very deep inside myself. And when I say deep, close to $100,000 of other experts, masters in their fields, multimillionaires, change makers, going, I need alignment. I need purpose. Why is this happening? But I'll get to it on the next video. So if you enjoyed that, stick around. I'll be back in about half an hour. It's probably late for a few people that are watching. You might enjoy this. You can come back tomorrow and watch it. Just depends on how you feel. Maybe there's something that I just unlocked in your own awareness in what I've shared. Maybe you've just had an insight into where you feel stuck. Maybe you just witnessed a part of your own story, part of your own journey, and you went, shit, I'm still holding on to it. How the hell do you come to a place of forgiveness, surrender, compassion, empathy for someone who some people would say, we're saying to me with their words, how can you forgive her? She fucked your life. And I went, no, she didn't. She empowered the shit out of me. I'm so grateful for the road that I've traveled, what I've become. It's perfect. 99% of people that know me, knew me, were friends with me at that time, couldn't understand. I even had one person, a very good friend, who's known me since I've been a teenager, who was earmarked as one of my confiders while I was going through the rebuilding phase in the first 6 months. And she turned around at one point because she wanted to kill my ex-wife, right? And I diffused because I said, I don't want your opinions. But at one point she said, what are you? Some kind of a Buddha? Everything is about perspective. And I'll get to this in the next video. But if you truly want to master your personal identity and emotional mastery, this is key for you to understand. And this is also the dynamic of what I do. And I'll explain more in the next video. There's a link. It's got the wrong page name on it. It's got the wrong page name on it. You can download that book, but it's changing to personal identity and emotional mastery. And I'll explain in the second video. But I'm sending all my love. If I've empowered you, beautiful. If you've had an insight, brilliant, brilliant. If you feel empowered to make a decisive decision about where you are right now, because trust me when I say abundance only happens when there is no resistance to any part of your life, your past, of where you are now, and the future that you hold in your hands because you see it in your vision of your imagination and your creativity. I'll see you soon. Take care. Love you. Bye.